The education and training show on Stray Extra.
So we're joined once again in the studio this evening. In fact, I feel a little bit privileged to be here because I'm normally on another show, so it's nice to be on this show as well. But I'm joined by Sunbeams. I've got Kate and Shelley here today. Very warm welcome.
Thank you.
To the show. It's not your first time. You're like pros now.
It's nice to be back.
So today we're going to be looking at the safeguarding of the children. So I was just wondering what kind of areas we're going to be looking at tonight to kind of tease ahead.
Yeah, well, safeguarding is a relatively new term, actually, and some people may not be used to it, but basically it encompasses a lot of things, does safeguarding. It's taken over from the old child protection, which people used to be familiar with from Ofsted, and they may have heard of that phrase before. But it encompasses a lot of things. It is about keeping children safe, so it is about the environment. At Sunbeams, it's about risk assessments, making sure that all our toys and everything and the environment itself is not dangerous to children. It's also about recruiting the right staff and making sure that they are screened appropriately and that we interview them correctly. And that's obviously to protect children, that they're safe in that way. It's also about the systems and the policies and procedures that we have in place at Sunbeams that also protect children. That encompasses a lot of things. So that really is safeguarding in a nursery in a nutshell.
So let's start with your staff then. How do you go about making sure that you are getting the right staff? What areas do you kind of go into? What kind of things are you doing to safeguard these children?
Well, the first thing is we have to look at the individual staff and make sure that they're right for the job. So we start with a job specification. We then make sure that they meet that specification. They're shortlisted against that job description to make sure they've got the right experience, right qualifications. We then interview them if they reach that shortlisting stage. In the interview, they would be interviewed by a panel of people and scored, and then they would be seen working with children, and we would see what they like working with children. When we've gone through all that, we then do actual checks, which people would be familiar with. We would have called them before CRB.
CRB, yep, I know CRB. Yeah.
That's actually now changed.
Yeah, to DBS clearance checks they are.
Oh, right,
now.
okay.
So
What's the thinking behind the changes? Is it because it was something that everybody's been so familiar with, then to suddenly change it from CRB, everybody knows what CRB is. So why the sudden change?
I don't know, really. I think
it's more. It's looking into it more. They're looking at. It's not just about criminal records checks now. It's looking at the bigger picture. We also look at the people who the members of staff live with. It looks at them as well. If they've got any criminal offences, cautions or anything like that, it actually disqualifies the member of staff from working with children if they actually live in the same household as someone that's got a caution.
It's a much wider kind of net.
Yeah.
So even more protection for children.
Absolutely, more protection. And at Sunbeams, they're not allowed to start working with children until all those checks are back in place, that we've cleared everything, that they've got the references back, that we've double checked through, everything is in place. So it is quite an extensive
it's a real robust
recruitment
procedure that we have, and screening policy as well that we've got in place for them.
And it's really going to put parents' mind at ease, knowing that their children are being looked after by somebody who's been so rigorously checked. And
because parents as well, they won't be aware of all these checks that go on. No. They've heard of the word CRB, but some of them don't really know what it means. But it's so much more extensive now, and the things that we've got to do before we even look at employing the member of staff, it's just massive. So.
But I think what I'd like to get across to parents as well is that's all very well, but those checks are only done on the day. What we must have and what we do have at Sunbeams is continually checking staff. So a rigorous look at their peer group, what's happening, whistleblowing, which is another term that people will be aware of, making sure that we constantly check their performance and their staff are appraised, they have performance objectives which they must meet, but we've got to be constantly vigilant against all our staff. Now, I know that sounds quite frightening for parents, but I don't want them to be frightened. I want them to be reassured that at Sunbeams that actually happens and happens on a regular basis.
I think as a parent myself, it kind of that even makes me feel confident that you're doing this constant checks because of the kind of world we live in. Things do change all the time.
They do.
So to know that you are on top of it kind of rests your mind a little bit as a parent.
Yeah.
Also, we're talking about the environment as well, because it's not just the staff, is it? The environment that you're children are in, how do you safeguard against things happening?
Well, obviously, there you're thinking about accidents in young children. So risk assessments, that again is something else that people have heard of. It's making sure at Sunbeams they are actually screened every session, the morning session and the afternoon session. The environment is looked at. It's checked, it's signed off, any equipment is removed that becomes a danger to children. And again, making sure that policy and that procedure happens on a daily basis. If accidents do occur, we have a very good recording system. Our recording system will actually pick up any trends in accidents. So if it's a particular time of day, if it's with a particular staff member, if it's with a particular child,
particular piece of equipment, and things like that. It picks up the trends there, meaning that we can look into it further and identify why that's happening, and if necessary, remove that piece of equipment or put more staff with that piece of equipment. If it's an outdoor apparatus, the staff will monitor that and supervise that with the children.
And it's all about minimising the risk. I have to say accidents to children are extremely rare at Sunbeams, but if they should happen, the other thing as well is making sure that all our staff are paediatric first aid trained. Now that is quite important and parents need to check that. I, as the managing director, am a paediatric first aid instructor. I'm a nurse by background and I went on to do further training. So I actually teach every single member of staff that comes to Sunbeams on paediatric first aid, and they do the advanced course. Now in some settings they only have one paediatric person on duty. We have everybody trained all the time.
Ofsted requirement states that one person should be within the setting at all times trained, but at Sunbeams we just go...
You're going above and beyond there,
yeah,
aren't you?
you've got to to safeguard the children.
We've got the most precious thing with us, your children, so there's nothing more important than that. And actually, we've now extended that to parents, so we're doing first aid training, just the basics with parents to help them understand what to do if an accident should occur.
Well, this is something that's been in the news recently as well, about people needing to know first aid, because you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So it's a benefit to the whole family as well, isn't it?
It is, and that's why we've opened it to all family members. And we do that free at Sunbeams. It's just an extended thing that we do for parents. So again, keeping children safe and what we can do with the community. If we can save one child's life or one child from having a serious accident, then we've done our job.
So safeguarding, can it extend to, say, the child's home then?
Very much so, yes. Yeah, I mean, the things that we take, and hopefully we're letting parents know that, and we've got a very good working relationship with parents, and we're extending that wherever we can.
What sort of things can, say, a parent be doing to make sure that their child at home is safeguarded as well, to take away from the nursery side of things?
Well, I mean, certainly when the health visitor would visit, she would talk about safety within stairs and stair gates, keeping all poisonous medicines locked away, keeping poisonous substances like bleach in high cupboards, not just locked, because some children can actually get into cupboards quite well. So it's keeping them out of the child's reach at a high level. So it's accidents in the home. I mean, at Sunbeams, obviously all our substances are locked away, but certainly that applies in the home as well. So trip hazards, trips and falls over toys is quite common at home, where all toys, so getting the children to put away things after they've played with them, so you're reducing the trips and falls of accidents there.
I know from what you've told me now, obviously Ofsted set a certain level, bringing it back to your nursery, but you seem to really go above and beyond this. How do you find that kind of the reaction of parents are going, oh, so you've got more than you actually need? Is it a positive reaction? Are parents really happy that you go to these lengths?
It's reassurance for them, and that's what a parent wants, is that reassurance. One thing we do at Sunbeams, which is over and above, is a critical incident procedure that we have in place that Kate introduced from being a health visitor and working with the NHS.
Yeah, I was an intensive care sister for many years. Now, I know that sounds really frightening. Accidents like that, very, very rarely happen at all. But what I want to be reassured is that my staff know exactly what to do. There has been incidents, and I still look at critical reviews, is that where staff have panicked in other nurseries. Now, we don't want that to happen. So what I introduced, it's been in practice now, it's called a critical incident procedure, because we don't have critical incidents at Sunbeams. we've still got to practice in case they do. So we have scenarios where the staff are given an emergency situation, like role play, and we watch how they respond. And they have to respond in a certain way in a certain time. And the staff feel very reassured because they know what to do, and they actually feel very confident in handling. If a situation did happen, they would know exactly what to do. And so the critical incident procedure has been in place now. It's been highly commended by Ofsted. In fact, all of our safeguarding procedures have been highly commended, hence why we have outstanding practice, and that's rated by Ofsted. So I think they acknowledge that we do go up and above, and we've been commended for that.
If somebody's listening now and they're loving what they're hearing and they're thinking, right, we'd really like to get in touch with you at Sunbeams, how would they go about doing that then?
Best way is to visit our website at sunbeamsdaynursery.com, or just call into the nursery. It's an open door policy and we welcome people in. Obviously we vet everybody first type thing. We've got secure checks as people come in, but yeah, they don't need to book an appointment to come and have a look round. They just turn up and we can show people around. The best way is to get the feel for the nursery when you come in.
I think it's just been really interesting to find out all these areas that you are really obviously on top of and above and beyond with all of these areas. So it must be really reassuring for any parents who are listening who are already in Sunbeams, and also for anybody who's maybe looking for the first nursery. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
All about safeguarding today at Sunbeams.
Thank you.
Stray Extra.